Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Mariana Alvarez, and I've been in healthcare here in Atlanta for 20 years. And I want to walk you all through week 3, data and material requirements, and you'll be specifying your required data sets, regions, and instruments. As we navigate, week 3, as you all continue to try to define yourselves and define your place in the world, and as you ascend to greatness, when there are times where you feel low or there are times where you feel behind, always remember that the light that shines within you is what matters most. And so I want to leave you all with my favorite poem by Marianne Williamson called Our Deepest Fear. And it's one of my favorite poems as it first introduced to me, no matter what the world thinks of you, no matter where you feel like you currently are today, this poem operates as a way to look inside, look within yourself by finding out how beautiful you are internally, how great you are, and how everything that you're capable of can be manifested into reality. So just want you to hold your head up high, regardless of what circumstances you're going through. So I thought I'd read this poem off to you all before we get started. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You're a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightening about shrinking so that other people won't feel unsure around you. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we consciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others.
Picture a single cell, barely a speck, spinning in a clear droplet beneath your microscope lens. At first glance, it feels trivial, yet in that droplet sits a potential avalanche of value, if you capture its story the right way. Most researchers still treat data like static snapshots, a TIFF image here, a CSV there, maybe a PDF buried on a grad student's laptop. That approach flattens the droplet's narrative and silently destroys opportunity. Investors can't price what they can't trace. Regulators can't approve what they can't audit, and AI models can't learn what they can't read. Instead, imagine each experimental run as a living provenance chain. Origin tag, exact cell line or patient sample ID, plus lab notebook reference. Context tag, growth medium, temperature, passage number, timestamp down to the second. Outcome tag, raw measurement file, QC score, immediate phenotype notes. Link tag, a permanent URI that points any stakeholder, tomorrow or in 10 years, back to the raw source. Add those 4 tags and you've transformed one droplet into a queryable, tradable, machine-readable asset. That is investor catnip. It proves you understand future compliance and future monetization on day 1. Now scale up. A typical proteomics run can spit out 30 gigabytes in an afternoon. Store it naively and you're just hoarding entropy. Store it with rich, fair compliant metadata, findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable. And every terabyte becomes a mini licensing engine. Pharmaceutical partners will pay real dollars for data they can index in seconds instead of reverse engineering in weeks. Here's the shocker most scientists miss. Metadata density trumps sheer volume. A 10 gigabyte data set with granular annotations often outcompetes a 10 terabyte black box. Why? Because regulators and due diligence teams optimize for traceability, not teraflops. If the FDA sees unbroken provenance from patient consent form to cloud endpoint, your timeline to clearance can shrink by months. That time delta is pure enterprise value. Let's talk ethics for a moment. Detailed metadata is useless if it violates privacy. So you introduce honest broker architecture, a thin layer that holds PHI behind firewalls while exposing de-identified feature vectors to the outside world. It's the same trick Johns Hopkins used to release their COVID dashboard without triggering a HIPAA showdown. In other words, good ethics are not attacks. They're an algorithmic accelerator and a credibility multiplier. Once your data spine is trustworthy, cloud economics kick in. One GPU hour on Dell Volta or Google Cloud now costs less than a single cryogenic storage hour for certain tissue types. Translation: moving bits is cheaper than freezing cells. When you virtualize, say running in silico toxicity screens on your labeled droplet library, you swap wet lab bottlenecks for elastic compute on demand. That shift can 10x your experimental velocity without adding square footage or lab tech headcount. There's also a covert strategic edge: data gravity. The richer your data set, the harder it becomes for competitors to move their models elsewhere because they now depend on your structured repository. You evolve from startup with interesting data to critical infrastructure in their pipeline. That changes negotiation dynamics overnight. A quick note on standards: resist the urge to invent your own ontology. Lean on community-blessed schemas like ISA tab for experiments, HL7 FHIR for clinical endpoints, or the Open Microscopy XML stack for imaging. Alignment with existing ecosystems keeps integration costs near zero and signals maturity to grant reviewers scanning for technical red flags. So, when we ask you this week to list every dataset, reagent, and instrument, we're not chasing paperwork. We're teaching you to build a full stack audit trail, an asset ledger that survives funding cycles, team turnover, and even acquisitions. In 5 years, your startup's code base will pivot half a dozen times, but if the provenance chain stays intact, buyers see continuity, not chaos. Let's land on 2 actionable takeaways. First, annotate in the moment. Post hoc tagging feels efficient until you mislabel one time point and invalidate 6 months of work. Second, design for search. If a grad intern can't retrieve a droplet's lineage in under 30 seconds, neither can an FDA reviewer under deadline stress. Your challenge: convert every Petri dish event into a petabyte-scale narrative that machines, regulators, and investors can all consume without friction. Do that, and you've already leaped ahead of 80% of Series A biotech teams. See you in the form. Let's turn droplets into data gravity wells.
Every startup lab has a dirty little secret: the cheap consumables that quietly eat a hole in the profit and loss statement. Pipette tips, buffers, microcentrifuge tubes, even the little foil seals for PCR plates. Each line looks harmless. Together they can outrun rent. Today we will turn those novelties into numbers, expose 3 hidden cost drivers, and show how a single minimum order quantity negotiation can push your gross margin from red to black. 1. The hidden cost of goods sold. COGS in disguise. Most founders track the obvious capital expenses: sequencers, flow hoods, maybe a -80 freezer. But reagents hide in 3 layers: perishable inventory, bleed. Enzymes lose potency every time the freezer door opens. If you discard 5% of a $500 enzyme lot each month, that is $300 a year per bench, vanishing as lab waste. Shadow freight. Overnight dry ice shipping can add 20 to 40% to reagent price, yet it shows up on a separate FedEx line, not on the vendor invoice. If you do not allocate that freight to each experiment, COGS reporting is fantasy. Workflow drag. Every micro stock out, the 10 minutes a tech spends hunting for the right tip rack, delays data, pushes payroll, and compounds burn. In biotech, time literally is money because patent clocks are ticking. 2. Supply chain risk. Why cheap today can be impossible tomorrow. COVID taught us that one blocked container ship can freeze global sequencing for weeks. But risk hides deeper: single-source antibodies. Many niche antibodies are produced by one facility in one geography. A regional power outage becomes a quarter-long gap. Commodity chemical volatility. Acrylamide and glycerol track natural gas markets. A 10% spike in feedstock can double your gel cost overnight. Currency shocks. If you buy from European suppliers and raise a seed round in US dollars, a sudden euro surge erodes runway without any action on your part. Mitigation strategy: adopt a dual vendor policy for all Class A reagents within 30 days of product market fit. That single policy can cut supply interruption probability by more than half, according to McKinsey's 2023 Life Sciences benchmark. 3. The MOQ game. Turning volume into margin minimum order quantity sounds like vendor red tape, but it is pure leverage. Here is the math. Vendor lists a critical polymerase at $400 per kit, MOQ 5 kits. Bulk by discount. Push for a 12-kit tier at $300 each. You tie up an extra $2,400 in inventory, but save $1,200 net. Cash flow offset. Negotiate net 30 payment terms.
Your cash leaves the account after you have already run half the experiments and, ideally, build a pilot customer. Consignment twist. Some suppliers will store the inventory on their shelf, ship on demand, and invoice only when you break the seal. You book the discount without the freezer footprint. Impact on P and L. If reagents are 30% of COGS and you slash that slice by 20% through MOQ strategy, gross margin jumps 6 percentage points, often the difference between a maybe and a yes in Series A diligence. 4 operational hacks you can implement this week. Create a live reagent dashboard. Use a simple Google Sheet with conditional formatting. Red means reorder queue. Yellow means MOQ negotiation window. Green means stocked. Share it with finance and the bench team daily. Build a freight map. Track true landed cost per item, including dry ice. So the next time a vendor rep offers free shipping, you can show them the historical spend and ask for real concessions. Run a 5-minute airflow audit. Any reagent that leaves a 2°C window during transfer loses shelf life. Place a temperature logger in your most frequently opened freezer for one afternoon. Present the data to the team. Behavior will change overnight. Prototype with high throughput simulators. Before scaling wet assays, run in silico screens on Dell Volter GPUs or Google Cloud. Every digital replicate skipped is a pipette tip saved. 5 takeaway. Reagents are strategy, not stationary. When investors skim your deck, they now look for supply chain sophistication as a proxy for commercial maturity. Show them you treat pipette tips with the same rigor as IP filings and you telegraph durability. Remember, pennies per reaction compound into millions per clinical milestone. Master MOQ leverage, expose hidden freight, dual source everything mission critical, and the illusion of trivial consumables turns into a very real competitive moat. Now open the week 3 form and turn those small purchases into line items your CFO and your future acquirer will actually respect. See you there. Imagine you just signed the purchase order for a brand new CRISPR sequencing rig. It glows like a spaceship, promises 10 billion reads per run, and costs $335,000 up front. Before a single base pair is read, you are already locked into 3 silent expenses: annual service contract, $50,000, reagent starter kit, $42,000, depreciation, 12% per year straight off your balance sheet. Add those together, and the total cost of ownership, or TCO, over 3 years is just under $600,000, and that ignores floor space, HVAC upgrades, and the tech's salary. Now let's flip the lens. Suppose instead you virtualize 90% of that workflow with cloud GPUs and synthetic data sets. You still need wet lab validation, but only for the 10 most promising edits, not for every speculative guide RNA. Step 1, benchmark the wet lab baseline. A pooled CRISPR screen against, say, 10,000 genes produces roughly 1 terabyte of raw FASTQ files. On your physical sequencer, that's 2 full runs. Reagent cost, $13,000 per run, $26,000. Instrument depreciation share, call it $5,000 per run. Tech time and QC, another $2,000. Bottom line, each 2-run experiment lands at about $33,000 direct cost and 5 days of calendar time. Step 2, spin a cloud twin. With today's transformer-based off-target predictors, you can simulate those same 10,000 edits in silico. Fire up 8 Dell Voltar H100 GPUs at $1.60 per GPU hour. Runtime, 20 hours wall clock. Compute spend, 8 GPUs times 20 hours times $1.6, $256. Cloud storage for the model checkpoints, round up to $50. Total digital bill, $306, 100 times cheaper than a wet run and delivered overnight. Step 3, hybridize for speed and risk control. You still need biological truth, so you validate the top 1%, 100 gene candidates in the wet lab. Reagent mini batch drops to $2,000. Machine time, still 1 full run, but you share the flow cell with another project and allocate half the depreciation, $2,500. Validation subtotal, $4,500 instead of $33,000. Quick math TCO showdown scenario. Cash out day, 0 3-year TCO cost per decision cycle. Own the box, $335K tilde $600K tilde $33K. Cloud first, hybrid 0 pay as you go, $4.8K. Even if you run 10 screens per year, the cloud hybrid sums to $48,000, still under the single-year service contract of the physical sequencer.
where the revenue enters investors and pharma partners care about cycle velocity, how fast you reach the next inflection. The cloud model buys you three advantages: capital preservation. Instead of $600,000 sunk into hardware, that cash funds 2 additional hires or extends runway by 4 months. Pricing power. Your marginal cost per validated edit is now under $50. You can quote pilot projects at 1/3 the market rate and still clear 20% gross margin. Elastic scale. When a pharma partner dumps a larger target list on Friday, you press duplicate workspace, rent 40 GPUs for the weekend, and deliver results Monday morning. Try doing that with a single box in a single room. The skeptic's rebuttal and your counter. But cloud GPU rates can spike and data egress fees hurt. Yes, unless you negotiate fixed rate reserved instances and run your heavy models inside the same region where your data already lives. Dell Volter's 1-year reserved H100 drops to 85 cents per hour and includes free internal traffic. Regulators favor on-prem control, not when you implement a validated pipeline with audit logs. SOC2 plus HIPAA mappings are already baked into Volter's enterprise tier, which means your quality team can export a machine-readable trace instead of printing logbooks. 2 action items before you open the week 3 form. Calculate your true instrument utilization. If it runs less than 40% of the workday, you are financing idle metal. Draft a 1-page cloud TCO sheet. Put the $300 GPU line right next to the $33,000 wet cost. That slide alone can flip a boardroom argument. When you present this math on demo day, you are not just another CRISPR startup. You are a capital-efficient data factory that scales on demand, de-risks burn, and turns hardware defenses into software margins. Open the form, tag every instrument, and watch your P&L transform from CapEx gravity to elastic upside.
Picture 2 biotech startups racing toward the same hospital pilot. Both have clever algorithms. Both have slick decks. One, however, already operates inside a HIPAA-compliant cloud and can prove it with an automated audit log. The other promises, we'll handle compliance once we close the round. Guess who signs the master services agreement first? 1. Why HIPAA? First wins the early-stage arms race investors often describe HIPAA as a tax on innovation. Flip that narrative. Think of it as an early entry toll booth. Pay once, gate every slower competitor behind you. Switching costs skyrocket. When a hospital uploads protected health information into your platform, they embed their risk profile inside your data lake. Migrating away later means revalidating every interface, every encryption key, every breach notification flow. Most will stay put. Procurement shortcuts light up. Many health systems maintain a pre-vetted vendors list. HIPAA certification drops weeks of InfoSec scrutiny, shrinking pilot lead time by a full fiscal quarter. Investor diligence shortens. A seed stage startup that already ticks the compliance boxes signals operational maturity. That compresses deal cycles and improves term sheet leverage. 2 practical path. 3-week HIPAA fast track. Week 1, scope and gap snapshot. Inventory data flows. Are you storing PHI or merely transmitting? Map endpoints on a single slide. Week 2, policies and cloud hardening. Spin up a Dell Voltar HIPAA eligible instance. Activate encryption at rest. Enable multi-factor administration. Switch on automated access logging. Week 3, third-party audit light. Hire a boutique assessor. Costs under $8,000 to run a focused gap analysis. They issue a letter of attestation you can share in pitch decks. Result, a credible HIPAA-aligned badge in 21 days without hiring a full-time compliance officer. 3, turning compliance into GTM messaging, lead with pain, follow with relief. Today, hospital data lives on USB sticks and legacy SFTP servers. We are the first CRISPR analytics platform built on a HIPAA-audited stack, so clinicians can upload raw omics files in under 90 seconds with 0 IT tickets. That single sentence does 4 jobs. Names the broken status quo, claims a first-mover edge, flashes the compliance credential, and promises immediate workflow relief. 4 SBIR/NSF language that converts reviewers' grant panels love 2 things: risk mitigation and technology transition. We weave compliance into both. Abstract hook, 1 sentence. By embedding HIPAA controls at TRL3, our platform eliminates a regulatory valley of death that typically delays genomic decision support by 18 months. Broader impacts paragraph. Early compliance alignment accelerates bench-to-bedside translation, reducing patient exposure to unvalidated AI systems.
The project establishes a reproducible blueprint that can be adopted by other NSF-funded digital health ventures, amplifying societal benefit. Commercialization plan, bullet snippet. Enter market via HIPAA-validated partner hospitals, leveraging pre-approved vendor lists to shorten procurement cycles by 40%. Monetize through a usage-based SaaS model. Early compliance allows premium pricing justified by lower institutional risk. Expand to SOC 2 and ISO 27001 within year 2, opening doors to pharmaceutical quality GMP deployments. These phrases show reviewers you are not only science savvy, but also Reggie savvy, a combination that consistently scores in the top quartile of SBIR panels. 5. Addressing the common pushbacks. Compliance will slow our velocity. Wrong. Manual breach remediation slows velocity. Automated logging and role-based access increase dev speed because engineers build once instead of retrofitting later. HIPAA won't matter if we pivot out of healthcare. Data protection frameworks overlap. HIPAA groundwork overlaps 70% with SOC 2 and GDPR. Early investment is never wasted. Audits are expensive. $8,000 for a gap assessment today saves $50,000 in re-architecture 6 months from now. It is runway insurance. 6.2 action items. Before you open the Week 3 form, add a compliance readiness row for every data set and instrument. Checkbox, HIPAA impacting, yes/no. If yes, tag the cloud region and encryption state. Draft a 15-word HIPAA wedge pitch you can paste into LinkedIn tomorrow. Example, genomics in 90 seconds, HIPAA audited from day 1, because patient trust can't wait. Do these, and you convert a regulatory hurdle into a moat that scares the procrastinators and delights both grant reviewers and enterprise buyers. See you in the form.